Hey everybody, welcome back. Today I'm going to be posting an update to my pure Orcust deck list. It's very much a control deck, focusing on summoning Galatea, setting Crescendo, and backing that up with either hand traps or trap cards. The previous version of this deck that I built was very similar to that of the Orcust Eldritch decks that were around a couple of months ago. Instead of the Eldritch cards, so I just played a lot of power traps. This time around though, I'm gonna try a hand trap version. So it still is the same kind of playstyle using Galatea and Crescendo and looping the Crescendos each turn. But instead of trap cards, just using hand traps, but also playing things like Crossout to just really ensure that Gearsu goes through, because Gearsu loses to pretty much every hand trap. So I'll get straight into the deck list. Starting of course with the 3 Gearsu. It is just the best card of the deck. It is a 1 card combo straight into Galatea and Crescendo set. It's the card you want to be normal summoning all the time. I'm then playing 2 Orcust Nightmare, 2 Simple Skeleton, 1 Brass Bombard, 2 World Wand, and the honorary Orcust is 1 Gizmecha. Now, I'm playing the brass in this list. I'm playing 2 copies of Orchestrated Return, which I'll get to in a moment. But I wanted to play a slightly heavier Orcust count because I'm trialing no extravagance. In my previous list, I played extravagance. In this list, I'm playing 2 copies of Return, just as another draw engine. Obviously it needs another Orcust in hand, but it's just another card that you can use to get the Orcust out of hand, because in hand these ones here are pretty much all useless. You only really want to see Gearsu unless it's brass in pair with one of the others, because that's still Galatea and Crescendo set, which is kind of what you want. So I'm trialing this. You could easily cut the brass, cut the 2 Return, and play 3 extravagance and then tweak the extra deck if you want to. But this is just the way that I'm trialing this build. I'm also playing 2 Scrap Recycler, playing 1 Armageddon Knight and 1 Dark Grepher. So the logic here is I wanted 9 starters. So all of these are 1 card Galateas, and my last 2 starters, and I'll grab these out now, is 2 Foolish Burial Goods. So the 6 here plus the 3 Gearsu is 9. They are all 1 card combos. Goods sends Crescendo, which you banish to search Gearsu. I was originally not playing Goods, and I was playing Rhoda and the 3rd Recycler, but Goods does serve a really good purpose in that if you do open a Return, Goods into Crescendo gives you a card to pitch with Orchestrated Return. So Goods is fine. I originally wasn't playing the Goods because I wanted to conserve the 3 Crescendos, because if you have to Goods for a Crescendo, you are down a little bit on your grind game, but I think being able to pair it with Orchestrated Return is it's a nice interaction not to pass up on. The last 3 spells for the main deck are the 2 Returns, and I'm playing 1 Foolish Burial. In the past, I didn't play Foolish Burial, which does sound crazy. However, with the hand traps that we're playing, Foolish Burial plus Ash or Foolish Burial plus Veiler is still the Orcust combo. So that could be a card that you cut for extravagance if you wanted to keep 1 Return, for example. So you might cut the Foolish Burial, a Return, and the Brass for the 3 extrav. That's completely up to you how you do that. And then the 3 trap cards is obviously just the triple Crescendo. The rest of the deck is our hand traps and cards to stop hand traps. My favorite lineup is Crossout, Double Tactics, and a Call by the Grave. I'm loving this ratio. If you've watched my last few deck profiles, this has been the go-to ratio if I'm playing Crossout. It just feels really good to have 6 cards that help you either push through the hand traps in the case of Tactics, or just deny them altogether with Crossout and Call by. Then the hand traps that we're playing, and again, these are almost the same as the previous decks that we were playing, but it's just the ones that you'll most commonly see in the meta, being Ash, Vela, throwing cards around, Nibiru, and Infinite Impermanence. Though I think an argument could be made for maybe even just cutting a Nibiru for a Psyframe Gear Gamma, just because at my locals that is something that does come up. Obviously it means I'm adding a complete brick because it's unplayable. Yeah, it is what it is. Otherwise I could potentially even cut the Nibiru altogether from the main deck, because this deck doesn't lose to Nib. Because the Gearsu combo does everything under 5 summons, so we don't really lose to Nib. So I could actually cut these for Gamma and find a space for a driver, because I'm currently at 41 and I wouldn't want to go past 41, 42. So I, for example, could cut the Foolish Burial for Gamma and driver, which in saying it doesn't sound like too bad an idea, but this is what I'm running at the moment. It's something that I'll have to have a think about in the future. The extra deck, the main thing you need is the Galatea and the Dingirsu, but because we're not playing extra, we do have a lot of extra deck space to work with. So I'm playing a Longirsu, playing a Zeravorus. You don't need this. Could just be an access code talker, really. Playing Borrelsword because Borrelsword plus Ding is game. 3 Nightmares, because again we've got the space for it. Barricade. This should be IP, just forgot to change it out. The Link Karibo. And I'm playing 3 Dingirsu. You could play 2 Dingirsu and 1 Zeus. But I just had that set up from previous Extravagance builds. But if you were playing Extravagance, I would play something like just triple Galatea, triple Ding, because these are the main ones you need. Double Link Karibo, double Link Spider, just so you've got enough options, because if you do have to use the Gearsu effect for tokens, having Link Karibo and Link Spider are really good. Probably triple Barricade Ball Blocker in that case, or double, and then maybe Unicorn, maybe a couple of Nightmares just to fill that out. But that's the main and extra deck, and what I'll do is I'll just run it through some test hands just to show the combo. It's not really that flashy a combo, it's just make Galatea pass, but just to show you, I guess, the consistency of the deck. Okay, so getting ready for test hand number 1. We just want to see a starter and some hand traps, and preferably one of our hand trap stopping cards too, just so Gearsu does resolve. We have Nibiru, Nightmare, Vela, Nibiru, and Crescendo. So obviously this hand is not playable. However, between the Vela and Nibiru, a combo deck would be fairly hard pressed to push through both. And then we would draw for turn a symbol. So still a bit sketchy, that hand. One thing I might consider is also trying to increase the consistency by maybe adding a 3rd Scrap Recycler and Rhoda, or even just the 3rd Foolish Burial Goods as well. Well, this obviously looks a lot better. So here we've opened up obviously goods and returns. So we've got our starter, we've got something to help us if Gearsu gets stopped. But what we'll do first is we will activate the goods. So yes, this does burn us a Crescendo. However, we're going to get 2 draws from this, so we'll banish the Crescendo, adding a Dark Machine. We will add Nightmare, because obviously if Gearsu does get ashed, for example, or even Impo, it doesn't really matter now what happens to Gearsu. Because unless it's Gamma, of course, if it's Gamma, then we will have a problem, because that would remove the Gearsu from the board. But we would return next, get rid of the Nightmare, and we're drawing into Vela and Crossout, which is awesome. So now we obviously know that Gearsu is resolving, and if they do happen to throw a hand trap at us, we're just going to draw 2 more cards, or even rip a card out with tactics. So this hand went from good to great. This is the combo, just in case you don't know it, but it's Girsu. In this case, I'm not going to send Nightmare because I've already got it, but you would normally send Nightmare here. I'll send the symbol. I'm not going to use the symbol at all in this turn, but I'll just send the symbol just as, I guess, a bit of an insurance policy in case our opponent does have something else. Then the next part is to banish Nightmare. Send the World Wand. Banish the World Wand. Summon the Nightmare. Link these into the Galatea. Galatea is going to put back the World Wand to Set Crescendo. And that's it. Obviously, we'd also set the impermanence. So what we have, obviously, with this hand, you could potentially set the Crossout if you wanted, though there isn't really anything on our opponent's turn that we would want to cross out. So it's probably just better holding it in our hand. I guess the only thing that would be good about setting it would be if we were playing against Orcust, because then, or even generic staples, something like Foolish Burial, but it's not really much that's going to stop. And yeah, so could set it if you want to. But yeah, that's going to be our first successful test hand. Once Crescendo has been used, obviously we can banish it to search Girsu and do it all over again. So that's kind of the loop we're kind of going for, is just to recur the Orcust engine turn after turn. And slowly, as you progress through the game, obviously we could then turn Galatea into Dingirsu to get a send. And then we could obviously recur the Girsu, and now we've got a Dingirsu as well. So we slowly are accruing advantage while our opponent is in a simplified game state. So, and then going second with a deck like this as well, because we're playing a lot of hand traps, we're just trying to simplify the game state, because once we get to a point where we're just going through the crescendos, our opponent is going to have a hard time pushing through a crescendo every turn, which obviously is a negate and a banish, which is better than sending it to the graveyard. All right, so we'll just do some quick ones now. That's the combo. You can do that with any of those starters. We'll just see what our hands look like. Okay, and I say any of our starters, but obviously Dark Grepher is not a starter on its own, though you do get the added benefit with Grepher. It's, I guess, higher risk, higher reward. In this hand, obviously the Grepher is useless, and this whole hand is actually very useless. It was so close. If this was a starter, we were feeling pretty good. But unfortunately, the Grepher obviously needs a dark to discard. So the benefit of Grepher is that if we do get hand trapped and we happen to have the Wand, the Nightmare, or the Gizmek, the Grepher is just a free summon. And if we are loaded up with darks, then we can still do a full combo, even if something like a Girsu normal summon gets interrupted. So Grepher is obviously the worst of our starters because it does require 1 extra card. But if you don't want to play Grepher, you could play the 3rd Scrap Recycler. You could play the 3rd Foolish Burial Goods. That is completely up to you. Okay, so this is obviously fine. We've got the Girsu, we've got the Foolish Burial. So the Girsu, unless they gamma us, we are definitely getting to our combo. In this hand, though, we do have the Crescendo already, so we can actually capitalize off that. And this is the main reason why I've opted not to play Extravagance. In this deck, obviously Crescendo is the thing you're trying to set all the time. The second best thing in this variant is Orchestrated Return. You'll notice that I'm not playing Babel, and that's because you don't necessarily need to play on your opponent's turn. That's what your trap cards and your hand traps are doing. So I'm opting not to play Babel. So if you drew Crescendo and Extravagance, you couldn't benefit off the return. Whereas in a hand like this, we can benefit from the return. So What we would do though with this hand, to benefit off return, you do actually need to play into Nibiru. So you'd have to obviously run that risk versus reward if you think your opponent has it or not. But it would be still to normal summon Gearsu, send Nightmare. And we would use Gearsu to summon tokens, because this is going to give us our extra body for Nightmares in the graveyard for sending with the return. So we can just put that off to the side. Actually, no, we are gonna link it off for our Link Karibo. And now we banish Nightmare, get Wand, banish Wand, summon Nightmare. I guess before we commit to the, we need the Galatea to get to return, so we can Nightmare and Link Karibo for Galatea. Galatea, put back Wand. So this is now at 5. We are at 5 summons, so if they did have Nibiru, it would be unfortunate. Although in this hand, not super unfortunate because we have Foolish Burial. So we can just Foolish Burial, send Symbol, and Symbol back to Galatea, so we still have our Link on board for Crescendo. But now we can fire off the return, get rid of the Gearsu because it's not doing us anything anymore to draw 2. And we've got another disruption ready for our opponent. And then, we use Galatea for return because we've already got Crescendo. Set these 2. And we're still holding Veiler and plenty of follow-up. And if they did happen to hand trap us along the way, we've obviously got the tactics to either draw or look at the hand, depending on what we need. But yeah, that's that one, and it was successful. And you got to see how we use the return when we already have Crescendo. Now, if you obviously drew an extra Orcust card, then you can just return it away. You don't need to play into Nibiru. In that hand, I had to play into Nibiru just because I didn't have the extra body. Okay, so again, this is going to be very similar to the previous combo. We have the combo because we've got the Scrap Recycler. Foolish Burial Goods also gets us there, but it does burn us a Crescendo, so we don't necessarily need to use it. We can hold it. That being said, if the Scrap Recycler does get stopped, we are relying on Imperm to get us there, which, is probably not going to be enough. But once we get to Galatea, we could get rid of the wand if we want to, or and we would have more cards to work with. Hopefully we would draw 1 to 2 more disruptions, just so with the Crescendo we had more to use. This will be the last one. See if we've got it. Yep, and we do have a playable hand. Okay, that's great. It's a very playable. Now this hand, obviously because we don't have Gearsu to summon tokens, we are not going to be able to benefit from the orchestrated return, though we do just get to set the return because we've already got Crescendo, and we would have the return as follow-up just as a draw 2 on the next turn, provided it doesn't get popped along the way. But we're definitely resolving our combo with the Crossout, and we've got the talents to punish that as well, to potentially draw into more cards as well. But otherwise, that's the deck. As you can see, it's fairly consistent. It's just really fun because it is Orcust. I know that it's a deck that I really like to play, as you might have gathered, because I do post about it fairly regularly. And the upcoming week when I'm at locals, this is something that I'm hoping to play, and we'll see how we go. Otherwise, thank you for watching.